Caravaggio painted Judith beheading Holofernes. He didn't paint the moment before or the moment after. He painted the middle. Her arms working, his blood already leaving him, her face completely calm. Not triumphant, not horrified. Calm, as if this was simply what the situation required, and she was equal to it. He was wanted for murder. He had killed a man in Rome and fled with a papal death sentence over his head. He spent the last 4 years of his life as a fugitive. Cardinals still commissioned him. Collectors competed for his work. Nobody else was painting like this. Nobody else had been where he had been. This video moves through 2 halves. First, Caravaggio, who he was, where he came from, what his darkness actually looked like up close. Then the thing his life makes visible, that the work and the darkness fed each other in both directions, and that you cannot have one without having touched the other. He was born in Milan in 1571. When he was 11, plague moved through the city in a single season and took his father, his grandfather, and his uncle within weeks of each other. He was orphaned into a world that had just shown him, very early, what it was capable of. He didn't forget. He apprenticed under Simone Peterzano in Milan for 4 years, a competent painter, a Titian student, nothing remarkable. At 20 or 21, Caravaggio left for Rome with almost nothing. He worked in other painters' workshops, sold small canvases on the street, lived in poverty for years before anyone knew his name. His early Roman models were gamblers, street fighters, card cheats, and prostitutes. He painted them in taverns, in rented rooms, with 1 candle. He wasn't slumming. This was his life. The people he painted were the people he drank with, argued with, occasionally drew a sword on. The models were not hired. They were present. He painted in near total darkness. 1 light source, a window, a candle, cutting across the subject. Everything outside that beam disappeared into black. This wasn't a style he learned. It was how he actually worked. The tenebrism came from the conditions of the rooms he could afford, and then it became his signature. His first major public commission was The Calling of St. Matthew in 1600. He painted the moment Christ points at a tax collector sitting mid-corruption at a counting table. Matthew looks up with an expression that is not holy. It is the face of a man who has just been caught doing something he already knew was wrong. He came back to Judith beheading Holofernes across his career. The woman in the painting is Philide Melandroni, a courtesan he used as a model repeatedly for saints, heroines, and sacred subjects. She appears as Saint Catherine, as Mary Magdalene, as Judith. Her face knew things that a court painter's model didn't. He needed that. For the death of the Virgin, he used Anna Bianchini, a prostitute found drowned in the Tiber, as his model for the Madonna. The Carmelite church that commissioned it rejected the painting immediately. Within weeks, Peter Paul Rubens had recommended it to the Duke of Mantua, who bought it. The rejection took days. The reputation lasted centuries. He was arrested repeatedly for carrying weapons without a permit, for throwing stones at a bailiff, for assaulting a rival painter. He drew a sword in taverns. He was sued for libel. His name appears in Roman court records more than his paintings appear in contracts from the same years. On May 28, 1606, Caravaggio killed Ranuccio Tomassoni in a street brawl in Rome. The exact cause is still disputed. A tennis match debt, a woman, something older and darker between them. It doesn't matter. He fled the city that night with a papal death sentence behind him and never returned. He spent 4 years running. Naples, Malta, Sicily, Naples again. In Malta, he was made a Knight of the Order of St. John, then arrested, then escaped from a prison that was considered inescapable. Cardinals and dukes continued to commission him throughout. the wanted man kept receiving the most important religious commissions in southern Europe. In his final years, he painted David with the head of Goliath and gave Goliath his own face. The severed head is a self-portrait, hollowed eyes, open mouth, the look of a man who knows exactly what he has done and has run out of road. He sent this painting to Rome. It was a plea for the papal pardon. The pardon was granted. He never received it. He died on a beach at Porto Ercole in July 1610, age 38, fever, exhaustion, the road finally catching him. The papal document was already traveling toward him when he died. The work he left behind was still wet in some places. He had not stopped. You don't ask yourself where it comes from. Not really. Not the technique, not the inspiration, the actual source, the wound, the thing that happened that made you able to see this particular thing clearly. Caravaggio never avoided that question. His work is still answering it 400 years later. His darkness fed his work. The criminality gave him access to faces and emotional textures that no court painter could reach. His work also fed his darkness. Painting violence as a daily subject for 20 years made violence more available to him as a response. Both are true. The line between them doesn't exist. The gamblers and prostitutes he used as models had faces that had absorbed something. Years of risk, hunger, negotiation, shame, violence kept at a distance, and then not kept at a distance. A hired model sitting in a studio for a fee doesn't carry that. Caravaggio's saints look like people who have actually needed saving. What that face has been through cannot be hired. A craftsman who needs the sharpest blade goes to the person who understands blades most deeply. That person may have come to that understanding through means the craftsman would never choose. The knife doesn't carry the history of how it was made. The cut does. The quality of the work carries the quality of where it came from. The edges get softened before the work goes out. Not out of dishonesty, out of instinct. The rawest version feels too exposed, too unfinished. Caravaggio had no such instinct. The rawness was the point. The exposure was the credential. He handed the unfinished thing directly to the wall and called it done. Caravaggio's contemporaries painted the crucifixion as theater, composed, dignified, spiritually elevated. His looked like a man being nailed to wood by people who had done this before and would do it again. The difference wasn't skill. Every major painter of the period had skill. The difference was that he had seen what fear and pain actually look like in a body. He used a prostitute as the model for the Virgin Mary. The church rejected it immediately. The painting was removed from the altar within days of installation. Paul Rubens, perhaps the most respected painter in Europe at that moment, saw it, recognized it as extraordinary, and arranged its sale to the Duke of Mantua. The people with the most institutional power couldn't use it. Everyone else understood what it was. The painters who worked safely within what the church and the aristocracy expected produced technically accomplished work that filled chapels and hung in palaces. Almost none of it is discussed today. It served its purpose. Caravaggio's work was rejected, moved, hidden, and fought over, and is still being argued about 400 years later. Comfort has a price. It's usually paid in relevance. You have been through something. Maybe you're still in it. The instinct is to wait, to get to the other side first, to present the cleaned-up version, to let people see you after the damage has been processed. Caravaggio never waited. The damage was the draft. The wound was already the work. Philide Melandroni's face, as Judith, calm, focused, arms working, carries something that a model hired for a day of studio work cannot produce. The calm isn't performed. It comes from someone who has had to be calm in situations where calm was a survival skill. Caravaggio knew what that looked like because he had needed it himself. When you hide the difficult part, you don't protect the audience from discomfort. You remove the only thing that would have made them feel less alone. Caravaggio put a drowned prostitute on the altar and called her the Mother of God. The church couldn't use it. Everyone who had ever lost something understood it immediately. While he was a wanted murderer, hiding across southern Italy, the most powerful religious institutions in Europe continued to commission him, not despite what he had done, not unaware of it. They knew. The work required what his life had produced. Nobody pretended otherwise. The church that rejected the Virgin Mary paid for the beheading of St. John without hesitation. He painted his own face as the severed head in David with the head of Goliath. The self-awareness in that image is complete. He knew what he was, what he had done, where the road was going. He sent it to Rome as a plea for mercy. He died at 38 on a beach with a pardon arriving too late. The work he left behind has never stopped being relevant, contested, and alive. The darkness he carried didn't ruin the work. It was the work's source, not its excuse, not its context, not something to be processed and left behind. The place he had been was the credential. The paintings are the proof.
Thank you for watching. If this video brought you any value, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. For more content like this, hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.